Rise up, ATL. Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. I'm Harrison Graham. A lot of buzz around the NFL draft with the Atlanta Falcons, as the Falcons do have the number 8 pick in this year's draft. And listen, the season didn't end up going quite the way we wanted it to. Started pretty well, but probably for the best, Atlanta having a pretty solid draft pick here, picking in the top 10. Now, the question is, what should they do? We believe here at Falcons Today that the Falcons should focus on the defense. Ride with Desmond Ridder for a year, go defense, rebuild the roster a little bit, and if Ridder doesn't rise up next season, you could draft a quarterback in 2024. Caleb Williams, Drake May, some other quarterbacks could be available in that class as well. So we're going to kind of lean on that thought right there. So we'll kind of go by position group here. Positions of need for the Atlanta Falcons. And I think edge is clearly the number one need for Atlanta. Just a brutal team at rushing the passer the last couple of years. Defensive tackle, I think, has to be considered in there as well, as the defensive line as a whole just has not been able to generate pressure consistently enough. Brutal stat here, 39 sacks the past 2 seasons combined. That's worse in the NFL by 23. Second lowest is the Raiders with 62 sacks. For reference, the Chicago Bears only had 20 sacks this year, but they had 49 last year. So they've pretty much been disastrous, not only for 1 year, but for 2 years. Atlanta's got to get better on that front four. Cornerback's another spot. You have A.J. Terrell, but they were trying to patchwork that other spot. You know, they had Cameron Hayward this year. He was banged up a little bit. I think you got to get another corner to pair with Terrell. Wide receiver, obviously Drake London's a good player, but you traded Calvin Ridley. You need to pair someone with London and Kyle Pitts. And then left guard as well. Got to get better on the offensive line. Obviously, they'll have to make a decision on Caleb McGarry in free agency to see if they tag or sign him to bring him back. But that left guard spot certainly up for grabs as well, as they kind of rotated there this season. All right, what is the Falcons' biggest position of need in your eyes? What do you guys think? We just laid out our 5 biggest needs. I think it's got to be edge, but give your thoughts down in the comments. Now, guys that will almost certainly be gone when Atlanta picks at number 8. Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, C.J. Stroud. And obviously, quarterback is a position that the Falcons could be in play for. Again, we're kind of approaching this as Desmond Ridder plays for a year. But, look, if Stroud were for some reason to slip to 8, yeah, that could change the conversation. But I think him and Young are almost certainly gone, and Will Levis will probably be gone as well, if we're being completely honest. Those 4 players will almost certainly be selected in the top 7. Now, you never know. Atlanta could obviously be a trade-up team as well. If they evaluate these quarterbacks, fall in love with one of them, then they could, of course, move up. But if they stick at number 8, which is how we're approaching this video, that is how we are basing these draft targets on. All right, Falcons draft targets. Let's get after it here. Tyree Wilson, the edge out of Texas Tech, who, look, he might even be gone with the amount of buzz he's getting. But there's a decent chance he'll be there with the number 8 pick. This is our clear top target for Atlanta. You need an edge. Wilson is an athletic freak. There's some scouts and people who cover the NFL draft on a daily basis, 365 days a year, that believe that Wilson has the potential to actually be the best edge in this class. Now, he's a little bit raw, has some fine-tuning to do. You know, Will Anderson is much more polished, but Tyree Wilson's 6'6", 275 pounds, can kick inside and play some 3-tech if you need him to. I mean, he is absolutely explosive. In his last couple of years, he's been really, really good as well. I like Tyree Wilson quite a bit coming out of Texas Tech. I love the athletic traits. I think he's going to be one of those guys at the NFL Combine that's going to just light it up. Like he's going to be, you know, you're going to read articles like fast risers from the NFL Combine. Tyree Wilson's going to be one of those. I can't wait to see how he tests. He improved every year. The production went up. So you got the athletic traits and the production, which I am a big fan of. Now, don't miss out. Go ahead and subscribe to Falcons Today. We are your #1 home for Falcons draft coverage. We'll have draft target videos, mock drafts, draft trade ideas, all kinds of content over the next couple of months leading up to April's NFL draft. So hit that sub button. Let's continue to grow the channel here at Falcons Today. All right, if you can't get Tyree Wilson, I think Myles Murphy is right there. Myles Murphy, similar to Wilson in size and stature, 6'4", 6'5", about 270 pounds. He can really get after it as well. He's not quite the athlete that Wilson is, but he was also probably a little bit more consistent and productive throughout his college career. I'm a big fan of the Clemson edge rusher as well. Sticking with the Tigers, how about Bryan Bresee, the defensive tackle out of Clemson? His production was kind of up and down, but former 5-star recruit, has that background. Can rush the passer, can also be a run stopper. I think you guys are probably sensing a theme here. You got to build that front four, right? Who knows what the future of Grady Jarrett holds. But Bryan Bresee is a guy that can really get after it. Now, you compare these two guys. Murphy was certainly more consistent and more productive during his college career, but Bresee has leadership traits that teams are going to like. He's going to test well physically as well. Myles Murphy should be a guy that tests well both in the IQ department and on the field, so I'm excited to see how these guys do. Obviously, Murphy is your outside pass rusher. He's a guy who's going to come off the edge, but Bresee is someone that you could pair with Grady and stop the run and give you a little bit of pass production from the interior as well. And I think, I don't think Bryan Bresee is going to be a Chris Jones type, but when you can get guys that can rush the passer from the interior, that is so valuable to have. I mean, that really is the biggest game-changing type of defender you can find because there's just not that many of them. So I'm certainly intrigued by him as well. Now, BetUS is our sponsor here at Falcons Today on today's episode. And if you want to go bet on some NFL playoff games, BetUS is the place to do it. So go get signed up today, chatsports.com/betfalcons. Use our promo code Falcons125 to get a 125% deposit bonus. Put down $100, get $125 for free, and you will be good to go. All right, what the Falcons' defensive line could look like depending on what they do in the draft. Tyree Wilson along with Grady Jarrett would be a nice pairing, or it could be Myles Murphy as well. Obviously, you'd like to upgrade at some of those other spots as well. Or, Arnold Ebiketie, we'll see what he ends up bringing to the table moving forward for this football team. But there's just simply no doubt, along with Bryan Bresee, of course, that you have to improve. You have to improve that front four if you are Atlanta. Now, pick one. If you could have the lot of any of these three guys, who would you choose? Type TW for Tyree Wilson. That would be my choice. Type MM for Myles Murphy, or type BB for Bryan Bresee. Let me know in the comment section. All right, a couple more guys here. Kelee Ringo, the cornerback out of Georgia, who has good athletic traits as well. Kind of a gambler, certainly gets beat some, but he also makes plays on the football. I like his size, 6'2", 205 pounds or so at corner, has that length you like. A.J. Terrell, like I mentioned earlier, needs a co-pilot, and I think a guy like Ringo could step in and be a number 2 right away with number 1 potential, and if he reached that, then you would have an excellent 1-2 punch along with Terrell. Casey Hayward did some nice things, but he's getting older. Has had some injury problems later into his career as well. Isaiah Oliver's a free agent, so is Rashad Fenton. So we'll see if the Falcons approach corner in the draft or in free agency. And maybe, one of these positions does end up being filled in free agency. But I think that drafting a corner could make sense. Maybe you could trade down and get Ringo a few spots later. I don't know if he'll go top 10, but could be an option. Joey Porter Jr., another option out of Penn State. I think he's more technically sound than Ringo, but doesn't quite have the physical traits of Ringo. So, again, it kind of comes down to philosophy. Do you want to go based on tape or testing or production or projection? Every GM and front office thinks differently. I think both in Ringo and Porter's, in terms of at the number 8 pick, could be a little high. I don't know if either of these guys go top 10, but teams do get desperate for corners and pass rushers. But I think the pass rushing class is stronger with Anderson, the 2 edges we've talked about, in Wilson and in Myles Murphy. I mean, you've got Jalen Carter at defensive tackle as well as Bryan Bresee. So it's a loaded defensive line class. So it's possible corners fall outside the top 10. I like Porter a lot, but again, is he worth the top 10 pick? I don't know. If I would probably opt to get one of those defensive linemen. If one isn't there that you like, then I'd probably trade down. And, maybe you get lucky. You can get a first-round pick next year in a trade down with the team, and that gives you extra ammunition for 2024 to potentially draft a quarterback if Desmond Ridder does not end up being that guy. Now, if you did want to pick one of these 2 corners, whether it was at number 8 or a little bit later, who would you guys choose? Type KR for Kelee Ringo, type JP for Joey Porter Jr. I'd probably go Ringo. I think his upside is higher, but what do you guys think on this one. All right, appreciate everybody for tuning in to Falcons Today. The draft coverage is just beginning here, so go ahead and subscribe. Whether it's myself, Matthew Peterson, or anyone else here on the channel, we will continue to keep you guys up to date with the latest Falcons news and rumors. So hit that sub button, and we'll see you next time here on Falcons Today.